Hey geeks, welcome to another exciting episode of Rockin the Code World with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter, and I'm back from my trip to India. Woohoo! And most of you know I spent 12 days there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But I'm back finally, and sorry about the show being canceled at the last minute last week. I wasn't feeling good, and I'd rather put on a decent show than a bad show. So my guest is back today, Mark Rendle, and he's going to be he's a software engineering consultant. He's going to be on the show a little bit later. This is show 69, November 5th. Woohoo! It's my friend's birthday today. I'm going to go see his band play, so I'm excited about that. And I hope you're all having a good weekend. So let's get going so I can bring on the guest. So, unfortunately, the stuff in the Ukraine is still happening, and I'm really sad about that. And so I just want to make sure that we all think about the Ukraine at least once a week and send our support and prayers or whatever you can to help these people get over this terrible action that's happening against them. So I have some friends there, and they're okay, thankfully. But there's a lot of people there that's not okay, and it's going to take many, many, many years, probably decades, for that country to recover from this, unfortunately. So let's think about that. Also, I hope this doesn't screw up the video feed too much. I tried to put the video down to 15 frames a second. Also, you all know that ever since 2019, I've been raising money for the Voice of Slum. There's multiple ways of doing that. I'll talk about it in a second. But one of probably my best time on the trip to India last month was I was able, you can see by the pictures here, I was able, along with Joe and Magnus, to go to the Voice of Slum, see the kids. They told us their hopes and dreams. Some of them sang songs to us. Chandy and Dave were at the conference even, and I did the opening to them talking at the keynote. So I was really proud that I was able to talk about the Voice of Slum from, the way it, from my heart, to everybody else that was at the conference. And so everybody that was there, I hope you can, everybody listening, I hope you can go, help the kids in the slums. There's multiple ways of doing that. You can go to the GoFundMe page I have listed here. You can also buy my code performance book for Microsoft.NET. 100% of the proceeds goes to that. Or you can just go to thevoiceofslum.org yourself and buy clothes and supplies, or just donate money to the kids. There's lots of different ways to help this great organization. When I was there a couple of weeks ago, it was really great to see Dave and Chandy and, continuing all the great work they're doing. I'm really proud, and they, those two really inspire me to come from the slums, and now, they're dedicating their lives to helping kids from the slums just like them. So it's a great organization. And so I could keep talking forever about them, but if you can help, please help the Voice of Slum. You'll make me feel a lot better, but most importantly, the kids will feel a lot better by your donations. So, all right, that's all I got to say about that. But please donate to the Voice of Slum. Please. We got a little bit of news today. .NET Conf is next week, so .NET 7 and Visual Studio, the new version of Visual Studio 2022 will be released. I hope they fix some of these little bugs I've been finding the last week or so. But next week is the big week, so I hope you'll go watch the .NET Conf. Also, watch out for a brand new version of my open source project, Spargin, to come out. I'm waiting for the final drop. To do the final compile. I've done a lot of great performance increases to Spargin, so I hope you go check it out. But watch out next week. If you're not on .NET 6 or 7, you need to be. There's the speed improvements by just moving your code, not making any changes, is pretty dramatic. So if you're still on the framework, get off and get on .NET 7. Is Mark ready to go, Simon? Yep. Okay. Also, I have a new article out on CSharpCorner that generated a lot of reads, and so I'm happy about that. It's an updated article that I've done. It's called Unit and Benchmark Testing with Random Data in .NET 6 and 7. I wrote an article, an older article about this, and I updated it because I made a lot of changes to my random data class in my open source project. So those of you who are newer to this world, one of the important things when you're testing data, especially something that could come from the user, is to make sure that the data is really random and has special characters in it and things like that to make sure it can get through SQL or whatever backend database you're using. So the cool thing, I've spent a lot of time creating this testing assembly, and everything in it is random. You can make random person objects, you can make random coordinate objects, you can make random byte arrays, you can make random email addresses, all kinds of things. I've done a lot of work to make sure everything is random in this thing. And this is exactly the project that I use when I do any unit testing to generate data. And all my benchmark testing uses this too. In the benchmarking. So, and I'm actually working on the benchmarking for .NET 6 and 7 right now, and I'll be releasing more info about that soon. But this is what I use to do the to generate random data, and I hope you will use it too. And if you do use it, please send me your feedback. If you need something added, I'm more than happy to add it, or you can go to the project itself and just do a pull request, and I'll take a look at it and add it as long as I think it's useful to the general public. So I hope you go check out the article and also check out the NuGet package and/or code that I've written for this. All right, with that, I want to introduce our guest, Mark Rendle. Mark is an independent consultant who works with companies using .NET, helping them modernize their applications and get the best possible value from their software development activities. He's a professional programmer for 32 years and is constantly keeps on his toes by shifting the technology landscape. He's available for workshops, technical talks, keynotes, lock notes, and children's parties. I'd love to know what he does for children's parties. In his spare time, he also enjoys running and playing video games. So welcome, Mark.
Hi, thank you.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Yeah, can't complain.
Good. And for those of you watching, Mark is, I invited Mark on the show because I watched a video that he did at a conference, and I was really impressed with, what he was talking about. And I said, come on the show. And so I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry about last week.
No worries.
I had to cancel at the last minute. And so where do you live?
I live in the UK, a town called Guildford.
Guildford, cool.
Which is a little way outside of London.
Oh, cool. I've never been to London. That's one of the places I've always wanted to come to. Well, the UK itself, because, my heritage is from there. I've always wanted to come. So someday.
Yeah, come in the summer because it's cold and it's wet and yeah.
Oh, yeah. You guys are going to have I was talking to when I was at the conference, I was talking to my friend from Sweden, and it sounds like you guys are going to have maybe a tough winter because of the fuel. And
yes. Yeah. Although, for everybody else in the world, great time to come to the UK because the pound has tanked.
Oh, so yeah.
Come to the UK and be rich.
I heard about that.
Yeah. But no, so yeah, May through August, weather's decent. So
yeah. Well, if you get too cold, you can always come to San Diego. It's always warm here.
Yeah.
It's always nice in San Diego. That's why I love living here. Especially where I live close to the beach. It's always nice.
Nice.
70, it's like we always say it's 72 degrees Fahrenheit all the time here, pretty much.
Yes. There's a Steve Martin film where he plays a weatherman.
Yeah.
And the weather is just 70 degrees sunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the most bored weatherman in the world.
Well, there's one of my favorite comics. His name is Lewis Black. I've seen him live a couple of times, and every time he comes to San Diego, the first thing he starts with is the weather. And one time he said, "What do your weather people do here?" They just look outside and say, "Yep, 72." You know,
Yep.
like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what they do. And one of our stations bought a weather van, you know, for the big weather events we have here. And I'm going, you spent all that money for this van and we don't even really have weather. So
Yeah. And so they can, if there's rain somewhere, they can get there super fast. And yes, look, rain. This is rain.
And well, when it sprinkles here, they call it storm watch. You know,
Right.
It's so funny. You know, it's really, really laughable. I don't know if that Ron Burgundy movie stuff made any fun of that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
The weatherman was weird.
Yeah. Because that was, you know, based on a newscaster out of San Diego back in the 70s or 80s or something like that. So anyway, let's get on topic, hopefully. So there's a couple things we're going to talk about. Well, there's a couple things that we can talk about today. So from the list you gave me, what's like what you want to start off with? Programming's greatest mistakes?
You asked me on because of the talk, so let's talk about the talk.
Yeah, programming's greatest mistakes. I could write a book about this.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen some. Yeah. And you know, you just need to read the daily WTF, and you can see some absolute shockers that are out there. But no, the talk was more about when people make mistakes and it costs millions or billions of dollars, either to fix it or it just things explode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they forgot one little thing, or it doesn't take much to bring down a program, that's for sure.
And based on my research, the most common cause of hedge funds collapsing or rockets exploding or whatever seems to be copying and pasting code.
I don't doubt it.
Like the Ariane 5 example, the maiden flight of Ariane 5, it took off and soared majestically into the sky for 70 seconds and then exploded. And the reason was that they copied and pasted code from the Ariane 4 flight control software, which had a different use for a flag. And they went, oh, we don't need a new flag, we'll just reuse that flag. And then it got triggered, and it triggered the automatic self-destruct, and it just went, oh, something's wrong, I'm going to explode. And all over the ocean off French Guiana. That's the primary cause.
I definitely can see that, because you know, I am definitely not with copying. I don't like copy and paste, and you know, I remember it's probably the last time I was at the MVP summit, you know, with Microsoft. And Scott Hanselman and a bunch of the big wigs were on stage, and I raised my hand. I go, "Can you disable copy and paste in Visual Studio?" You know, and they just looked at me with the strange looks, but I was being serious, right? Because it's just people just do it blindly, and also to me, if you just copy and paste, you're not learning anything.
Yeah,
right. You're not learning, you know, how coding really works. And that's actually one of the reasons why, you know, when I taught at the university, I don't know if I did this for the whole class, but definitely the beginning of the class, on the labs, the weekly labs they would have, I would make them write it by hand. Right. I wouldn't even allow them to type it. They would have to write it by hand. Right?
Yes.
Because I didn't want them copy and pasting. I wanted them to actually write the words, you know, and put it in their brain what they're actually doing, right?
There's something about writing with a pen on a piece of paper that gets stuff into your memory. You know, my daughter's just been doing her end of school exams back in the summer, and writing the notes out, just copying a note from your book onto paper, and it goes into your head better when you do it that way.
Yeah, I just heard a news report this week, actually, that said that cursive writing is even better than printing.
Oh, right.
Cursive makes it go into your brain faster. If then you're printing, and then typing is the worst. You know, as far as getting stuff. I don't remember the last time I did cursive except for my name, right?
Yeah, that's it. My signature.
They beat that into our heads in school, and now we don't even use it. It's like, learn that for nothing.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so that's why I did it. I mean, I'm sure the students didn't like it, but I was doing it for a reason. I wasn't doing it just to be a butthole teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was trying to get them to learn, right, and especially the beginner students and things like that. So
I think you could actually you could write a .NET analyzer that had an index of every code sample on Stack Overflow.
yeah,
And if something matches exactly something on Stack Overflow, it just squiggles
creates
the
an
whole
error,
thing.
creates an error, build
Analyze
error.
it. You copied and pasted this from Stack Overflow.
See, that's what
Are you
Microsoft needs to
sure
do
this
with
code
their. That's what they need to do with their AI. They could do it,
Yeah.
right? Because they have
Yeah.
all that stuff now, right? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, on the one hand, you've got an AI stopping you copying and pasting code from Stack Overflow. On the other hand, you've got GitHub Copilot, which is basically copying and pasting code
Yeah.
from GitHub. So yeah, let the two fight it out.
I actually saw a tweet by somebody, and she said, the way I code is copy and paste. I'm going, oh my God. I hope I'm not using your app. And it's not mission critical or an emergency type of app that people might die or something, because that's not going to work, right? So we, in reality, we all copy and paste. So for people watching, if you do copy and paste, what's your suggestion to make sure you review it and look at it? Or do you have anything?
So I mean, everything should be covered with tests.
Yeah, true.
So if you're copying and pasting code, the chances are you're not going to be able to copy and paste the test. So if you write the test that covers the code, then it'll mean that you understand what the code's doing. So that's probably quite a good guard against this. And one thing I see is, or I have seen, is people, they do a test and then they write the code, and then they copy and paste the code, but they don't copy and paste the test. So they go, well, it worked in that. We're testing that it works in that one place, and it's basically the same code.
Right.
So we don't need to test it in all these other places. So yeah, it's make sure that every time you paste code, you have a test that covers that new pasted code, and then you'll probably be okay.
Yeah. And testing is good. My next article I'm coming out with is about benchmarking. That's another thing that can really, like this week, I uncovered an issue with my open source project with this one method that if it was dealing with a collection of more than 1,000 items, it was causing these memory issues. And so I had to go in and fix it. So, these are things you do, unit testing, even, benchmark testing to uncover issues like this. Right. But me personally, when I copy and paste code is, I always, review every single line. I change things to make it up to my standards or the way I program and things like that. So, and then I write unit tests against it. And then I write benchmarks against it to make sure that everything is working great. Because you can't, if you use benchmark.net, and I'll talk about this in the article, if you use benchmark.net, you can't debug it. So you still need your unit tests. Because at one point I was going, why do I need unit tests? I'm benchmarking it. Well, you can't debug benchmark tests. So
yes, when the benchmark throws an exception, you need to be able to work out.
Yeah. So you still need both, and but anyway. So what else are the greatest mistakes besides copying and pasting?
So there's one of my favorites was the metric system and the imperial system. So Mariner 1, Mariner 1 was, so there was Mariner 1 broke because of a hyphen. $6.5 million in 1960s money
Oh my gosh.
went up in flames because somebody forgot to draw a hyphen over an R, which so they'd written the mathematical equation for something, but if you put a hyphen over a term in maths, it means smoothed over time. And so they had this R that was supposed to be smoothed over time, but the person writing the equation on paper with pen forgot to put the hyphen on. The programmer turned that into code using Fortran or machine code or whatever they were using in NASA in the 1960s. And yeah, it wasn't expecting sort of big spikes, so they went out of tolerance, and the mission control dude hit the button and blew it up. But what was the one? The Mars Orbiter mission, where so NASA used the metric system because they work with companies all over the world, and they work with a lot of scientists, and scientists use the metric system, and everything used the metric system except this one piece of code in from Lockheed Martin that used imperial. And inches are like 2.5 times bigger than centimeters. And so, yeah, it was supposed to do something, and it came in too hot and too low and crashed into Mars.
Wow.
And eventually they got there with another orbiter, and then they found it, which was nice.
That's, that, gosh, can you imagine how much that cost, just to ram something into the ground like that? I mean, geez. And all that effort and time and.
Yeah. And every time I watch a launch, especially NASA launches, when it's like the James Webb Telescope, that was terrifying. The number of things that needed to go exactly right.
Yeah.
It's like there were 400 steps just after the thing had got off the planet and was heading to where 400 steps, unfolding mirrors and calibrating things. And if that breaks, that's 100 million miles. It's a long way away. No, it's not 100 million miles, but it's like 1 million miles away from Earth. We can't go and fix it.
Right.
So that's terrifying. And then the other mistakes that I talk about in the talk are the more general mistakes. So null, obviously, which has been called the $1 billion mistake. And we have better ways of doing null now.
Right.
And had they thought about it at the time, then maybe they could have used like an option type or something, and we wouldn't have nulls. But it's difficult to kind of retrofit option of T into everything. So there's that. And then I also claim that JavaScript is one of programming's greatest mistakes.
Yay! I'm with you on that one.
Not really, in that you can do things with JavaScript, and it's better now than it was, and it's actually progressing forward, and we've got kind of new syntax and const and let instead of just var for everything. But it's more the point that given how much of the world relies on JavaScript, what percentage of all the code in the world is written in JavaScript, it would have been better if somebody, instead of poking their head around Brendan Eich's door and going, hey, can you knock up a quick scripting language for a demo next week, had gone, hey, can you write the language that's going to form the basis of international commerce for the next 50 years? So maybe don't use floats. I don't know. Just have a proper decimal type in there somewhere.
JavaScript, I wish they would replace that with something better. It's just, I'm sure they will someday, but I don't see that coming anytime soon.
We're getting there. We got WASM now, where you can compile proper languages to something that runs in the browser. So that's good. But yeah, and the talk is it's one of my. So it's not meant to be taken too seriously. And I don't talk about like the Boeing 737 Max or anything. So none of the stuff I mention had people die. The last thing in the talk is the one where everybody in the world nearly died because the Russian defense satellite, and computers misidentified sunlight glinting off clouds as 5 intercontinental ballistic missiles. And so this guy was supposed to go to his senior officer and say, we need to launch our missiles, but he made the call not to do that. And so
thank
we're
goodness.
all here,
Jeez.
But yeah, the talk is, there's some educational stuff in there. There's some information in there, but it's also, it's designed to go in the last slot. It's a lock note. So after 3 days of conference where you've been watching people just melt your brain with new ideas and new technology and new ways of doing things, and you're exhausted, then they stick me on and I talk about something that you don't actually have to pay attention, and hopefully there's a few laughs in there and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's programming's greatest mistakes, and there's also the worst programming language ever. Where rather than kind of go, that's the worst, it's not sort of being particularly mean to any one language. It's quite mean to PHP. But it takes just inexplicable features from lots and lots of different languages, and it's got stuff from Ruby, JavaScript, Go, F#, Python. I think it's got C# in there, C++ and C. Just mangles them all together and comes up with this absolute abomination of a language. So that one's really fun as well.
Yeah. Then next time I have someone on from Microsoft, I'm going to ask them, like, what do you think is the worst thing in the .NET language? That right now, that's kind of left over or was done wrong. I know they talk about stuff like that a lot, but I'd love to know from somebody that works actually on one of the teams, like the runtime team or something like that, what they think it is.
I think personally, I would say in Windows Forms and WPF, the fact that all your event handlers have to be void. If they could fix that, if there was a way that they could kind of go WPF X or Windows Forms X, and just go, now clicked is a value, returns a value task.
Right.
So if you need to do async stuff in there, but obviously Windows Forms came along, that was in .NET 1. WPF was in .NET 3.
Right.
And we didn't get the task parallel library that and that was .NET 4 or 4.5. I think we got tasks.
4 something, I think.
And then C#5 we got async and await.
Right.
So it made it actually easy to use tasks. And so obviously, but these days, if I'm doing a UI, I generally turn to Blazor first. And one of the things I just love about Blazor is you can just make your event handler method async, and Blazor just do an async task, and Blazor just deals with it. And it makes it so much easier to write proper code. So that's what I think. But it, like I said, it wasn't a mistake at the time. There was no task. There wasn't any of this. And you can't just go back in and break everything.
No.
But I'm interested to look at .NET MAUI and see if that is using async methods as
I was looking at this week, but I can't remember off the top of my head if it was. I'm trying to learn MAUI myself. But your programming mistakes is, when you're talking about that, I wanted to say that that's exactly why I don't own a self-driving car. Because I tell people all the time, I'm a software engineer. I've been doing it almost as long as you have, and because of that, I trust software the least. Right? Because I know the people who do it. I know the mistakes they make, and me letting some car drive itself, that's not going to happen anytime soon. That's for sure.
And I mean, we all have days when, if we're completely honest, we just shouldn't write any code today.
No.
It's let's find something else to do that doesn't involve that, because I'm not I'm hungover, or I'm
Hmm.
tired, or I'm
Right.
stressed about something, and I'm not focused on what I'm doing. Um, and yeah, we can put test-driven development and processes and code reviews and as much stuff as we want around things, but people are going to make mistakes.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and when you work them too hard, right? It's
yeah,
I know
especially.
things are different in different countries. In America, we usually work 8 hours a day. I know in other countries it's 12 hours a day or every day a week, and you have to have a rest, and that's why, I think like a lot of people, myself, Mahesh, who's on the call right now, who runs CSharpCorner, all of us talk about, the work-life balance because that's really important. And I will admit that in the beginning, I wasn't very good at that because I was trying to learn, you know, I was learning programming. I'm totally
Mm,
self-taught, and so I definitely didn't do the greatest work-life balance in the beginning, but now I definitely make sure that I do as much as I can because you're right. Some days I get up and I go, yeah, today's not a coding day. I need to do something else, because
yeah,
I'm just not in the zone today. But there are some days where I have to code because of the company, expectations. But I also make a mental note of myself. Okay, I'm going to code today, but tomorrow I'm going to review all this code
yeah.
because I don't trust it.
Yeah, but
So
no, that I see. There's a lot of mental health issues, which I think was another thing I put on the list
yeah,
of,
yeah.
of wanting to talk about. And yeah, our industry, there just seems to be um, this culture crunch.
Mm, hmm.
What they call it at game studios, and we're all people on Twitter going, "Why is this game being delayed?" And you said it was going to be out in October, and now you're saying it's going to be December, and blah blah blah. But yeah, you can't. I think when you're young, you can manage it in short bursts. You can
Sure,
kind of go,
sure.
I'm just going to work my socks off this week.
Yeah,
Um, but you have to take a break. You have
right.
to, you need to kind of go, right, I worked my socks off last week. I'm going to take it easy this week. Um, it's really important
Yeah.
to look after that. And uh, just looking on the places where developers hang out. So Stack Overflow comments, Reddit, programming subreddits, Hacker News, all these places. Um, and there's so much negativity. There's
Hmm.
so there's so much toxicity
It is.
coming in there, and it's coming from people who are stressed. They're,
Hmm.
they're hugely stressed out, and they're worried all the time.
Hmm.
um, and yeah, I'm sort of trying to think of ways to make it better for people. You sort of go on somewhere and go, oh, this is a new thing that I made, and somebody just unleashes this torrent of
Yeah.
this is terrible, you're an idiot, and you just want to go, hey man, what's wrong?
Hmm.
What's actually wrong?
Are you
uh,
okay?
yeah,
Well, it unfortunately, and I've always wanted to do a show about this, but I haven't been able to get the right people on. But unfortunately, it's much worse for women in our industry. If you think we're picked on,
oh
women is 100 times worse,
yeah.
and that's
uh,
why a lot of them leave tech is because of people that act like this.
yeah. And there's just this issue of men, when there are just men there,
Hmm.
will behave in a certain way.
Right, right.
Um, and so we've got this problem where there is a primarily male environment.
Hmm.
And so men are used to being able to act in a certain way, say certain things, be crude, be crass, be like vulgar and swear a lot and make offensive comments. And it's just lads and they're
Hmm. Yeah.
just jossing. Um, and so if a woman comes into that environment, um, there's this notion that they should have to bend, they should have to
Hmm.
change, rather than all the men have to change their behavior, which I
Right.
think is because it's kind of like, well, there's 15 of us and there's only 3 of you, So
Yeah.
why should we change? You should change. But the reason that there's only 3 women
It's
in
because of
there
that.
is because you're a bunch of assholes,
Right.
and you're making it, and they will probably not last very long. They will probably not want to stay very long, um, and all the time that they do stay is going to be affecting their mental health.
Mhm.
And it's really not that much to ask. You can go drinking with your buddies at the weekend. You can go to sports games with your buddies and just have boy time, man time, and you can get all that stuff out of your system. Then it's not appropriate. It's, even if there aren't any women there, it's not appropriate in a work
Right.
environment.
Exactly.
But you know, yeah, I've heard some, and that's just the kind of the latent background thing.
Mhm.
That's without, any actual direct harassment or abuse or psychological, emotional um, attacks, which also happen. Um, yeah, and I don't know how to fix it.
I don't
We need to
either. I
fix it.
haven't
It
been
needs to
able
be
to.
fixed.
Yeah, and
Um,
uh, part of the issue too, I think, because this is what I hear from women, and because some stories they tell me when I'm at conferences, which I won't repeat to anybody, right? And um, you know, the other part is, and I can only talk about software engineers or what I kind of know about them is that, there's a lot of, we're introverts, and there's many software engineers that have difficulty talking to the opposite sex, and because of that, that also taints their view or their anger or whatever. And
yeah,
unfortunately, that plays into this whole thing too. And so it's really unfortunate, it. But yeah, I wish I could have a solution, because if I had a
yeah.
solution, I'd be talking about it on my show. That's for sure. But
Hmm.
my only solution at this point is just at least bring up awareness,
Yeah,
because I didn't even know this was happening to women until I was up speaking at this conference up in Silicon Valley, and I hung out with somebody who used to work for Microsoft, but then was working for GitHub, and she told me these stories that I was just, what? People do what? And I
yeah,
go, because I just don't, I didn't expect that, because I don't think like that, right?
yeah.
So I, yeah, when
I
I
think,
first found that out, it made me really sad that, because I always try to encourage women to get into tech, and now I find out that, there's a lot of people out there trying to do the
yeah,
opposite,
yeah.
really.
I think, if when you get into the, um, that's not just thoughtless, that's actually um, proactively bad behavior, like some of the things I hear about happening at conferences.
Yeah.
The most recent conference I was at, there was a guy who was eventually ejected from the
Hmm.
conference and had his badge taken off him and
Hmm.
won't be allowed back because of how he was behaving towards a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And she was telling me about it, and it was just kind of like, um, the thing that it's difficult for people who aren't assholes to appreciate that some people are assholes. You sort of go, I would never do that. I would never say that. I would never even think that. And so there's a tendency to go, so how could anybody? I don't believe anybody is like that,
Yeah.
and they are. But yeah, no, the sort of the things that we can do is try and raise awareness of the problem, try and sort of teach better behavior, but
Hmm.
primarily, if you see it happening,
Say something.
um, then say something,
Yeah. Yeah.
because yeah, um, you need uh, a, a a man who is behaving in that way. Well, I'm not sure we're really qualified to talk about this, to be honest with you. And there's going to be people watching going, "What the hell do you two know?"
I know
But
we're
one
men.
one thing I one thing I do know is that if a man doesn't have enough respect for a woman not to start hitting on her at a conference, then
Hmm.
he probably doesn't have enough respect for women to listen when they tell him to stop.
Right.
And so for that kind of situation, other men stepping in and going, dude, stop, just
Yeah.
stop, walk away, preferably leave and rethink your life choices. Then yeah, there is a need for that to happen. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
let's get off of that topic. I'm going to bum everybody
yeah,
out, I think. So let's talk a little, because we don't have a ton of time left. Let's talk a little bit about the modernizing .NET apps, and kind of what is your advice if you have a legacy app, especially .NET framework. What's your advice to modernize it and get it into the cloud? How would you approach somebody
so
asking that?
this is kind of my jam at the moment. I'm working with companies, I'm doing workshops, and I'm going in and sort of looking at companies' solutions, coming up with ways to migrate from
Yeah.
.NET 4. And I mean, the key thing I think would be to say there are paths application or an ASP.NET Web Forms, ASP.NET MVC application. There are strategies, there are patterns, there are libraries and tools and techniques that you can use that will enable you to migrate in a phased way, in a sort of, so you don't have to kind of, we're not adding any new features for probably 18 months while we
Yeah.
get this to build in .NET 6, which, that's not an option for anybody.
No.
But for ASP.NET Web Forms, you can stick a YARP proxy in front of it, which literally just passes the calls through. But then for one URL, you can rewrite it as a Razor page or
Right.
a Blazor component, or just an ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Core MVC page. And then requests start hitting your new code, and then you do the next one, and then you do the next one, and gradually you can bring things across. And I've written an open source library called Cocoon. Microsoft now have system.web.compatibility NuGet package and a couple of other things that enable you to share session and authorization with
Cool.
the back-end application. So if you've got, well, I can't do that because this page needs to put something in session or get something out of session, then yes, you can do it. You just have a connection between the two things, serializing and deserializing session objects. So, that, and web forms, I think, is the biggest challenge, because WPF and Windows Forms are both now available in .NET 6 and .NET 7, and you sort of just copy and paste the forms and the code across, and really it's a matter of playing whack-a-mole. Where's the like the framework features that are no longer there, or the NuGet package that we got, or the assemblies that we downloaded in a zip file because this thing's so old NuGet didn't even exist. Because I remember those days, you'd get a zip file or sometimes a Windows installer, and you'd have to install this software, and then you'd go and install it on the web server as well. So yeah, and you've got this huge legacy component that they'd never updated to .NET 6, so you need to figure out a way to replace that. That's the most challenging part with WPF and Windows Forms.
I think I think someone asked me this at the conference last month about going to the new versions and everything, especially since I tell everybody you got to get on 6 or 7, .NET 6 or 7, and but I kind of say the same thing. You got to do it in chunks. You can't stop. You can't stop everything for production for who knows how long and change everything. That just doesn't make sense. And I think now thinking about it, I think that if you're going to have an app that's going to last a long time, you almost have to be continuously changing it, right? Because
Yeah.
I go into a lot of companies even this year where they're still using code that was written 10, 15, even longer ago. They haven't changed it. They have so much technical debt, and this company specifically now, because their customers are kind of forcing them to move to the cloud. Their apps were never really written very well for the cloud, and they've had this really really long process of just to lift and shift their stuff in the cloud. They're not even taking advantage of the cloud, right? They're just lifting and shifting, and that process alone is taking a couple of years just to lift and shift, right? Because part of the lift and shift was to go to .NET 6 because of all the goodness in .NET Core, .NET. But yeah, you always have to be thinking about this. What's the next thing we're going to have to write that it's going to have to be worked, with the legacy app, right?
Yeah. And the first thing I do with when I'm sort of doing the specific consulting is try and quantify and qualify the technical debt. So, for example, in a lot of web forms applications, there's not a single
Do we lose you?
Maybe if we.
Oh, you were cutting out. Sorry.
Wrap. No, it's kind of cutting in and out. I don't know how it's doing on the live thing, but
I can see it.
is choppy. So it's an opportunity to pay off some of that technical debt as part of the process. If you can pull stuff out into shared libraries, class libraries, then you can multi-target with the new SDK projects. You can say this targets .NET 4.7.2 and .NET 6 or .NET Standard or whatever it is. Or if you've got an application, a desktop application, say, that's got all the business logic in it, then maybe you can think about pulling some of that out and putting it into APIs, putting it into sort of HTTP or gRPC APIs and hosting it on a server, that sort of thing. So it's one of those things where for every company I work with, the answer is different. There's just a lot of commonality in there, but and it's kind of like I say, there are tools. There's Upgrade Assistant, and I have a tool that I wrote called Visual Recode, which tries to turn WCF applications into gRPC applications. But these days there's also core WCF, and so I might suggest to somebody, well, take it from WCF to core WCF, but then actually think about still then doing another step and going to gRPC, because WCF is still doing SOAP, and SOAP is SO 2006. So with any application, it's a living thing.
Well, I gotta let you go because
and you need to keep looking after it. So. Yes, Simon's
getting on me. It's 49 minutes because Simon wants to go to bed, or he wants to go out and party with his friends, one or the other.
Fair play.
He always blames everything on me, or I blame everything on him. That's the way it is, right, Simon? I did want to mention real quick something that Mahesh said, that JavaScript has created so many non-programmers who think they're programmers. Yeah, to me, it's HTML people think they're programmers too. So let's stick HTML in that.
There's a lot of people who would say that about .NET developers.
I know. Well, before I let you go, the last question I ask all my guests, because we were just talking about work and life balance. So what do you do for fun that's not coding?
So I run for my health, but I have actually, so apart from playing video games, I have just this last couple of weeks started learning to play the bass.
Oh, cool.
Because my friend Dylan has a band and needs a backup bass player for when the
No.
main bass player can't make it, and so
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
learning bass,
Cool.
which
Yeah.
is great because it doesn't it's not typing, it's something completely different, and
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying that. So
I'm a guitarist, and I practice every weekend, 4 to 5 hours every single weekend.
yeah,
As long as not last weekend because I wasn't feeling good, but any weekend I'm healthy, I'm practicing like 5 hours a weekend. I'll be practicing today before I go to my friend's gig, and
yeah,
I personally, not only does that really help me with my stress, but it also helps keep the creative juices going in my head, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
And
so
it's exercising a different part of your brain
right,
than the
right,
one that you use for coding, which is really important. So
right. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. I definitely we didn't get to everything. Maybe we can have you back on next year.
yeah,
But I really appreciate you being on the show, especially since it's kind of late there, and it looks like you have family behind you. They've been
lights going
walking
on,
back and
yeah.
forth, going, "When is he done?" So so I'll let you go. If you want to hang out afterwards, Simon and I talk, but I totally get it if you want to go hang out with your family.
I might hang out and chat for 5 minutes. Yeah,
Oh, so you don't want to hang out with your family?
that'll be
I'm
fine.
kidding.
They've had
I know,
enough of
I
me.
know. All right. Well, thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.
Cheers. Thank you.
Well, that was a great session with Mark. We kind of, we did talk about mental health and lots of other things, and I hope to have him back on. But I'm just glad to be back doing the show because I haven't been doing it since beginning of October. So I'm glad to be back. So I got a couple more things, including one of my favorite segments, dog fooding. So the next thing I'm going to have Simon show a dog fooding video I created yesterday. If you're unfamiliar with the term dog fooding basically means, the people who write the application actually use the application. In my mind, if the writers actually use it, it's going to be a better app, hopefully, unless their management blocks it because they have to use the dang thing. So roll the tape, Simon. Hey geeks, welcome to another episode of Dog Fooding with dotNetDave. I'm David McCarter, and this time I'm going to pick on the app from Netflix on my iPhone. So I recently got back from a trip from India, and before I went, I downloaded some movies onto my app so I could watch in the plane. That worked fine. But when I got to India, I was having some space issues on my phone because of WhatsApp, and so I deleted some of the downloaded episodes, and I wanted to re-download them before I left from Delhi, come back to America. Well, guess what? First off, the Netflix iPhone app doesn't work in India, or it doesn't work for me. I don't know why, but it just flat out wouldn't work. It wouldn't pull up anything. I couldn't download anything. Nothing worked. I'm about to show you my experience there, but also when I came back, I'm experiencing the same thing. So the first thing I want to show you is that I can't even get the list of shows to come up on the home page of Netflix. Watch. I'm going to tap to retry, tap to retry, and it doesn't work. Nothing comes up. Really frustrating. And like I said, I've been back from India for 2 weeks now, and that's my experience still. Now, new and hot actually does work. That list actually does work. Fast laughs, that works too. But for some reason, the home page doesn't work. So it's definitely not a connectivity issue. Something else is happening here. The next thing I want to talk about is in the app, if you see an upcoming show or something like that you want to add to your list, or you want to be reminded when the show actually is released, there's a way to do that in the Netflix app. I'm going to show you the first way you do that. So you find a show you like. This time I'm picking the chalk line, and I added it to my list, right? Everything's great. But I'm going to show you with the second video on the right. So if I close the Netflix app, open it back up again, go to new and hot, go down to the chalk line, and There it is. There you can see it's not checked. So whenever I try to add something to my list or set a reminder in the Netflix app, it doesn't save it. I've reported this to them many, many months ago, and it's still happening. So I'm not sure what to do. I've updated the app, I deleted it, I put it back on, updated it. This is my experience. Really frustrating. Also, when I was in India, I tried to look at my list of downloads, and you can see here that doesn't really work either. See, no list of downloads. I know I had 1 or 2 downloads on there, but I can't even list the downloads that I have. And I also can't see what I can download in this screen. You can see I'm going to press see what you can download, and nothing. So I was stuck when I was in India. I couldn't download any shows. I couldn't even watch any shows when I was in India because of all the problems with this app. On this screen, again, this is about downloads, but you can see in this screen that if I want to view more episodes, that doesn't work. So basically, right now, nothing works in this iPhone app for me, except for maybe the laughs section to get a quick joke or something like that. So come on, Netflix. I really expect a lot better from you. I know you have awesome engineers, but I just do not know what's going on with this iPhone app. So here's proof again of all the problems with the iPhone app. You can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to work with you, but right now you're not responding to anything that I do. So I hope this video out to the world will help you get on top of this so my iPhone app works again. Yep, that's my experience with the Netflix app. It flat out basically doesn't work for me anymore ever since I went to India. So frustrating. All right, got a couple more slides left, so I can. Oh, one more slide left, so I can let Simon go to bed. So next, I'm not going to be doing a show next week because next week I'm going to be speaking at the Granite State Code Camp. So I'm going to be doing my memory talk. So if you missed it in India or you want to see it again, go to my dotNetTips.com and you can get a link to go watch me do that next week. So we'll have a show after that. Also, COVID is still around, unfortunately, and now we're getting some other respiratory issues for kids here and everything. So make sure you listen to your medical professionals about everything going on with COVID or something else. Also, please donate blood at your local blood bank. You all know that I do this all the time. I donated right before I left to go to India. Unfortunately, I can't donate for 3 months now because of going to India. So I'm not going to be able to donate till sometime in January. But you can donate. You have no excuse. Only I do because I went to India. So, but you can donate. So please go donate blood to your local blood bank. They're all in big shortages right now. Also, I'm always looking forward. I'm looking for ideas for the show, guests you want to have on the show, how you like the show, all that kind of stuff. Please email me at Rockin The Code World at CSharpCorner.com to give me an idea on how to make the show better for you all. And with that, I'll see you in a couple weeks.